Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions Internet. I hope you guys are doing awesome. I'm doing pretty good. Got employed. I put in a couple hours. I'm gonna have a full check here soon. Speaking of full checks, this is episode number 29, The Religion of Money. So this should be a very good one. This is gonna be a juicy episode we have here for you. I'm hanging out in front of the Gwinnett Brewery. I don't really have a goal for this episode. As usual, I'm pretty tired. I just got off work. I gotta work tomorrow, work all weekend. I have Easter Sunday off, but I do want to give a shout out to Will Keller and Crypt Rick. So there's a show on YouTube called Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking, and they just posted an episode all about Easter Sunday and this season of sacrifice that we're upon us right now. It's upon us right now. It's happening. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I'm about to sacrifice some super mutants myself. So, before I rant on too much, I guess the goal here, I'm gonna try to go to Spectacle Island. We'll see where we wind up. I might even hit up the submarine, the Yangtze. We'll see. We're gonna see what we're getting into. But like I said, episode number 29, The Religion of Money. Here we go. I've ranted enough.
And that's one of the things about religion that we have to remember when we're talking about that makes it such a hot topic issue. It's because we're talking about law. Who gets to be God? Who gets to be God's deputies? Who is the Most High? Who is the divine authority? It's all about the claim to the Most High. The only way that somebody can be higher than us is if we give away our power. Because there's nobody, we're all equal. But we're not equal in our knowledge, so ultimately I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hello, Hive Mind. Welcome to the 29th episode of the CubbyWhole podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. Today is November 12th, 2020. Please make sure to check out our website where all of our previous content is available. Our website is CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. My name is Brandon Martin, and I will be your host for today's show. Today I'm going to be continuing off from our last show, episode 28, where we have been breaking down the methods of manipulation. And for those who are not aware, we do have slides for a lot of these new episodes, which can be found on the website in the description of the episode. So there will be a little slideshow right beneath the description of the episode that has all of the slides that we have put together. Now remember, if you want to get the full totality of the message that we are trying to bring to the table here and full understanding of the information we are providing, you need to go back to episode 1 and start from there and chronologically move forward. On the last episode, I covered indoctrination, controlled opposition, and the financial system. Today, we're going to be starting from the financial system and moving through some of the other methods of manipulation. And if I have the time, I'd like to get through at least 3 or 4 more of these. So, without further hesitation, let's get right into the topics. We talked about how the financial system is used as a means to keep people in control, and how the financial system is integrated in almost every aspect of our lives. That the world banking cabal, the world bankers, are not really concerned with who is creating the laws because they understand that they can just buy everybody out. They also control the debt of a nation by loaning the money from the Federal Reserve to our government through means of interest. So they can control every aspect of the value and the devaluing of such a currency, and also to constantly keep us as debt slaves, not only as an individual, but also on a national level. So here's a quote by Thomas Jefferson. Banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers occupied. The financial system is one of the most integrated mind control techniques that we have. It is the world's biggest religion in truth. And we will be talking about religion as a means of manipulation here later on. But I see currency and money as one of the biggest methods of manipulation. People will do almost anything to get their paycheck, including removing their own conscience. And what I'm speaking about here is the immoral occupation of order following, and how people will abdicate their personal responsibility to a higher authority and to wipe away magically all of the wrongdoings that they're committing to individuals by removing and usurping their liberties. People will do the most vicious atrocities to people just for a paycheck. The police are the bought and paid for henchmen of the dark occult ruling class. They are there to protect the elite, quote unquote, masters of this world from the individuals and the sovereigns that actually might rise up against them.
Sweet.
Their entire occupation is based upon fear and violence. But it is this false belief in money that drives a lot of individuals into immoral occupations and immoral actions in their own daily lives. The fear of scarcity is a huge factor in why people go to such lengths to make sure to get money. And a big thing about this is that most scarcity is artificial scarcity that has been initiated and intended to make sure to root people in the R complex of the brain so that they are basing their decisions off of the survival mode only, so that they do not get into the higher neocortex and activate their conscience or higher level thinking through the heart-based consciousness so that they can make correct actions. This is one of the main things that the dark occult ruling class relies upon, is people being rooted in the R complex, because from there they are easily controllable, and from there they make very irrational decisions and very immoral decisions, because the ability to understand morality comes from the higher functionalities of the brain. So without having access into those higher functions of the brain, an individual will be rooted in the R complex, like I stated earlier when we explained the basic functions of the brain, the three basic functions of the brain. I mean, we go as far as to equate the value of the individual with the value of money. One of the most deplorable comments you could say to somebody is that you look like any amount of money. I mean, to me personally, that is just absolutely absurd that you would compare somebody to dirty shit paper. You know, literally dirty shit paper, war paper. Just call it war paper, because that's what it is. It's a war. It's a war on your consciousness. This is all a war on your consciousness. I seriously can't believe that other people refer to each other's beauty as monetary value. I've heard people say it so many times. You look like $1 million or $1 trillion, or how much ever arbitrary value-based system that they put on an individual, because they look at that as some sort of higher status and beauty. They actually look at it as beautiful. Money, the most deplorable, dirty, disgusting, fake piece of shit paper that I wouldn't even wipe my ass with it. And you want to refer to others as 1 million or trillion pieces of these shit papers? Please, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Money is literally the one God that rules over this world. The ancients used to say that what you think about the most becomes your God. And just think about it. How much every day people are literally sitting there in their mind thinking about how to acquire money. This is what they do all day long. You know, I mean, this is what we are indoctrinated into through our educational systems, is how we're going to acquire money, right? I mean, this piece of freaking paper that has no real intrinsic value and is only in play at this point in our evolution because of the artificial scarcity and mind control techniques that are being used to make sure that this kind of control system stays at the forefront of this consciousness war. People are so worried about drug addiction, right? But you never hear anybody talking about the addiction of money. I mean, every once in a while you hear something about the greedy rich, you know, feeding off of the poor, etc. It all gets blamed on the upper class, right? And yeah, a lot of these people are definitely part of that issue, but not every single person that has more money than you or what could be classified as rich is your enemy. I mean, that's what we all should be. We all should have, you know, the true richness, which is spiritual richness. We truly are rich in our spiritual value because we have infinite spiritual value. And when we obfuscate the spiritual value or the individual value with monetary possessions, it is absolutely absurd. But most people are spending their day addicted to the concept and the illusion of money. Now, I'm not telling you to not try to make money or not think about money. Obviously, we have to have some means of survival, but I am telling you that this is how it's used. It plays off of the right brain and it plays off of the emotions to make sure that people will act in a specific way so that a specific path is taken and a specific result is manifested. I mean, truly a wasted life is a life spent searching, lusting, groveling over these pieces of shit paper. You know, I'm sorry I'm using so many curse words in this, but I'm not going to euphemize when it comes to this. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And if it throws the audience in a loop, because normally we're not on here cussing that much, well, there will be a little bit of vitriol that comes out from time to time. And I think that it's a very healthy thing. I mean, there are studies shown that, you know, cussing actually can increase somebody's productivity. And it's because you're tapping into that sacred part of yourself. You're tapping into that authentic part of yourself. You know, I mean, we could use different words for that, obviously. We could have different emotional connections with other words that bring out that authenticness within us. But currently, that's what we have. That's our set base. So cussing becomes that cathartic way of being able to release those emotions. And there's nothing wrong with being cathartic as long as you're not hurting anybody. So I'm not trying to drive anybody away from this information because, you know, obviously I personally would like to see scholars and, you know, teachers and people like that listening to this type of information, and, you know, using those types of words may drive a wedge and between the viewer and the speaker. So we don't really want that. So I do refrain from trying to use that a lot to not drive away the audience. But I mean, what else do you want me to call money? It literally is a piece of shit paper. I mean, why do you think they call it a medium of exchange? There is a connection there between a medium and also a medium, an individual that has a connection to a higher source or a spiritual plane. This all ties into spirituality because truly money is a proxy for the real currency in the world, which is time and attention. And when we get down to time and attention, the root of both of those is energy. So money is a proxy for energy. Money itself is the mon I. It relates back to the one I. That's why they call it money. M-O-N, mon, or mono. And then E-Y, which is I, if we phonetically pronounce it. So there's more of that green language there. But we could also look at it as the moon I, which relates back to the sacred feminine, which is in direct correlation and makes sense to me why it would be that way in the green language, because it relates to the emotional and sacred feminine aspects of our consciousness. A little bit more wordplay when it comes to this is, bill. We call it bill. And if we break down the word bill, be ill, well, there we go. If you're constantly obsessed with money, if you're egoly identified with the concept of money and you believe in it intrinsically, then you will be ill. And you can have the illusion of happiness even though you're ill. You could be rich, you could be living on an island, you could be living in a mansion, all your needs taken care of, and this could all be due to you searching for money and using the real law of attraction to get that currency. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with people having, more money than other people. It's how this is being used against us to manipulate us, to oppress us, to violate and usurp our liberties. That's one of the biggest issues, I don't really care if it's all voluntary and it's utilized in a healthy, non-violent way. But what we have is a system that monopolizes that service, and what that means is that nobody else can actually compete with that service. They eliminate all competition. So there is no room for the true free market. There is no room for a stepwise progression into a system of abundance, which makes money obsolete. But also, we work for bill, right? To get bill, to pay bills. Now you're telling me that's a coincidence, that's all lined up directly? That's 3 bills. Think about that. To work for Bill, and Bill could be your boss too, because it relates to Baal, okay, the ancient Canaanite deity that has to do with fertility rituals. So there you go again. It has to do with the sacred feminine component. This also shows how it's directly connected to a religious mindset. And the word Baal or Baal literally means Lord or owner. So in the Phoenicians, the Phoenicia Canaanites, they would represent Baal as the Lord of the heavens, if you look that up. So it literally means the Lord of the heavens. This is all a form of dark occult manipulation when it comes down to it. This is how they are using this against us, this type of wordplay. And we're going to do a little bit more wordplay here with these words. Now let's take a look at the word currency. We have the word current, right? This is the root word of currency. And the current has to do with the water. It has to do with the tides, the ebb and flow. And this relates back to the sacred feminine principle as well. Waters directly relate to our emotional complexes also. This specifically falls under maritime admiralty law, which has to do with import and export of trade over water. So Mary or mer means water, like mermaid or merchant, the water chanter, the merchant, which has to do with trade and barter. Maritime admiralty law is literally the way that they have legalized slavery. See, people don't realize, but slavery is legal. And if you understand maritime admiralty law, you will see what I mean. I'll give a brief description of this now, but I don't want to stay too long on this topic because we will open this topic back up in the future. So maritime admiralty law is the way that they use a straw man technique, a straw man fallacy, to build up an artificial image, an artificial construct or creation of the individual, which can be legally used as a means of trade and barter. So they are literally turning the natural individual through this sorcery into an artificial being, which is not true. It's all an illusion because it's a straw man technique. They're trying to build you up as something that you're not. And for those who don't understand what a straw man technique is or a straw man fallacy is, I would recommend doing your due diligence into understanding logical fallacies because they really will help to improve your thought processes, your reasoning, and your ability to see through manipulation tactics like this. So this is the easiest way I can explain this. Maritime admiralty law is the way to convert the natural being into an artificial corporate entity. or a product of a corporation. And the way they do this is through word sorcery. Let's not use the term word magic anymore when it's being used to violate individuals. It's word sorcery is what it really comes down to. So maritime admiralty law, like I was stating, has to do with the law of water. So when your mother's water breaks as a sign that the baby is about to be born, you're rushed to the hospital, rushed to the birthing room, and you have to be overseen by the doc. So with maritime admiralty law, the vessel is considered to be the ship. So often you will find a sacred feminine deity or a sacred feminine symbol at the bow of the boat, which is interesting in many different ways. But this vessel then proceeds to bring in a foreign object from one location to another. It is a gateway of sorts, or a canal. It's a canalway. So whenever you, the new product that is being birthed into that land, come down the canalway, the waterway of the female anatomy, you are considered to be a foreign item. So they have to have a manifesto, which has to then be signed off by the authority, which is the doctor. So what happens here is that the ship comes to the dock, and then the manifesto is signed over by the authority or the doctor. This is the same thing that happens in the birthing room, where the ship, which is the vessel, the female, the mother, who comes to the birthing room. This is why they call the dock the birth also. So, if you know shipping terms, like if you go down and you're working in that occupation, you'll notice that they refer to this as the birth. And this is because they are birthing these new items into a foreign land. And this is the same thing, like I said, that happens in the birthing room. So the doc or the doctor has to sign on the manifesto, which is the birth certificate. Now, the birth certificate specifically has your name in all capital letters. And the reason why they do that, so that it can be classified under maritime admiralty law. And whenever you use your name in all capital letters this way, it means that you're giving over the maximum amount of rights. It means that you are a corporation or an entity of that corporation. So it's known as capitis denimutia maxima. And what that means is that you're giving over the maximum amount of liberties. So you're forfeiting your individual liberties to a higher authority. And like Doug says at the intro of this podcast, the only way someone can have power over you is if you give that power over. The thing with this is that you have no choice in this matter. Your parents are choosing to do this, and they've been brainwashed into this type of system. So, there are many different types of legalized slavery that we can look at. Maritime admiralty law is just one of them. Taxation is a form of legalized slavery. But the point here is to understand how they're using these types of terminologies. You will find that a lot of words that are used in conjunction with water issues or water situations have to do with money. So if you just look in finances all over the place, you find it. A bailout, bail, there's that word again, bail, right? You're bailing it out. Liquidation, right? There's another term for that. So you have, not for bailout, obviously, but it's a associative concept being correlated with liquid, being correlated with the water. And so we can see that they are being blunt and overt in a slightly cryptic way, because most people don't do their research, but it's out there. You can look all this up. It's not like it's hidden, just most people don't do their research on these things. That they're using a form of sorcery to manipulate and obfuscate the individual with the straw man of that individual. That straw man is that corporate entity or a corpse. They are a corpse. I mean, think about that word, corporation, a corpse, a dead thing, something that is not alive, a live entity, right? Something that is non-moving, but it's a proxy for what's really going on. It's there as an artificial construct. You are considered a dead being at that point. You're a corporation, so you're a corpse. So you're a dead being. Well, this is how they confuse people about these things, is because they're using a completely different language in the legal system than what most people are using colloquially. So, whenever we're studying law, like whenever people go into a courtroom, you may say that you're a citizen. Well, what you mean as being a citizen is definitively different than what they are classifying it under the law, man's law specifically, as a citizen. When you say sovereign, there's a different definition for that. And I would recommend Black's Law Dictionary to understand how this really plays out. That will really give people a very interesting look at how words are used in the legal system to, pretty much strawman you, and to get you to consent to something that you normally would not consent to. That's the whole idea here, is that you become egoly identified with these constructs, these corporate entities, these labels, and then you use them, and as you use them, you're using them more and more. This is why they have to have your signature. It's not just for verification. This has to do with sorcery. This has to do with energetic magic, but it also has to do with you giving consent. This has to do with you willfully participating in that system. And even though you didn't have a choice with it at the beginning, as you grow old enough, it is your responsibility to learn how these things work so that you can fight back against these things. Another wordplay that we find within this system is that we have banks. And banks, what do? Well, let's take a look at something in nature. We have a river, and then you have river banks on either side of that river. What do those banks do? They direct and control the destination of the current. We can look at this in a different way also. As the banks become narrower, there might be more pressure, right? And then since there's more pressure, there's also less water coming out. Even though there's more pressure, you have less water moving through that channel between those banks. And what this is it creates scarcity, right? And psychologically, it relates back to pressure in our minds and our emotions, because we don't have what we consider to be something of value to our system, which we know is not really valuable. So it actually prevents the human progress of the human race. But if those banks were to open up and there's an abundance of that coming out, the value of that starts to lessen a little bit, because everybody has it. So they're not all fighting over each other for that thing. The value is, there's a natural value to, like, water itself. Obviously there's an intrinsic value to water. So that value doesn't ever change. It always stays that way. But if you are in control of that water, then you can control that value based on how much you can provide, supply and demand, right? So that's what we're looking at here. So the banks control not only the supply and demand, but also they control the pressure on society, the pressure on the individual. So it's not a coincidence that these terms are being used so prevalently, so radically in this type of system. And like I said, current relates back to water, but it also comes back down to energy. So what they're using it as a proxy for is energy, because they are trying to get you to associate money or currency with the idea of forward momentum, with energy. And if you look at it in an electrical sense, like through the study of electronics and things like that, you can see that really what this does is it's a resistor on a circuit board. If you just look at that societally, money is really the resisting agent to actual growth, to actually, being able to move forward as a species. So that's the way that I explain it, is that money is the resisting factor. It's not the actual current. It's not the actual electricity or energy that is being used. I mean, one of the main factors, if not the main factor, for Tesla technology not being fully implemented is because of money, or the false belief in money, that is. It's also because of control. There's a lot of factors to it, but that's one of the main things, because, you know, these elite scumbags couldn't make profit off of free energy, so they had to, you know, support Edison rather than Tesla, and then they destroyed the Tesla Tower. And you know who did that? Was the Order followers. How about that? You know, what a disgrace to go out and destroy such a monumental and such a beneficial technology for humanity. Another interesting green language part of the word currency is that we have currency, right? So it's the current or current and sea. The stream, the energy flows to the sea. And I just found that kind of interesting because it does, you know, correlate to this. I mean, pretty much what they're doing is taking the natural individual and then converting them into a commodity to be traded. And this is why you find the Social Security numbers on the stocks and trading markets, because they're using that as a means to make profit off of you. It's crazy how much money they're just making because you were born into this country under maritime admiralty law. And the thing about maritime admiralty law is that it supersedes land law because water connects all land. It's technically superior based on how much control they get from using it. So, you know, why would we be correlating the Latin, you know, roots of these words? I mean, like currency doesn't really have anything to do with, you know, paper or coin. But really what it is about is harnessing the energy of humanity. And what we're really studying here is synchronicities or syncretism, right? So this is about taking two opposing sides in a way similar to the Hegelian dialectic. I would say it's the proper use of the Hegelian dialectic, and finding the truth by process of elimination, right? Eliminating all that is untrue or false. And then what has remained between those two things that is true, you unify them into a functioning, you know, idea or a functioning application of that idea, etc. So we have what is known as nautical terms, which is relating to the sea, ocean, shipping, and navigation. The term nautical originates from the Greek word nati, or nautikos, and it means ship or sailor.
All right, that's a great spot to take a break. We're about halfway through the episode, so stick around, stay tuned. There is more coming soon.